Did you think that a better portfolio would make clients swarm to pay you more? Well, I know that I did, and for the better part of 2 years, I updated my website religiously until I realized that I was still stuck with low-paying clients. So it turned out that my portfolio was not helping me land higher-paying clients, but even worse, it was actually the reason that I was stuck with low-paid gigs to begin with. But when I fixed this one mistake, everything changed, and brands like Hyatt, Four Seasons, Royal Caribbean, and more started hiring me on for high-budget gigs, not because my work was significantly better, but because I was able to prove that it was worth paying for. So it sounds like a dream, right? Everybody should be doing this, but actually most creators are scared to do the thing I'm about to show you. So in this video, I want to break down what that one thing is that makes clients want to pay you more, why it works, even if you think it won't, and most importantly, how you can implement it to start getting more clients today. But in order to understand what this even is, we first need to take a trip back in time to the late 90s when Amazon was just a small startup company with a big problem. How do they get customers to buy on their website instead of at a local bookstore? So at the time, people were used to flipping through books, talking to the salesperson, physically testing the products, and honestly just hanging out at bookstores. And online shopping was relatively new at the time, so trust was a huge issue. And it seemed kind of counterintuitive to go purchase a book from an untested website where you don't really know what you're going to get, when you could just go to the bookstore and purchase it and walk away that day with a book that you know is good. But Bezos knew that the biggest issue for Amazon wasn't getting people to the website, it was getting those people to trust the website enough where they purchased the product sight unseen. But the problem is, without any physical proof, why would anyone trust an online bookstore versus their local shop that they've been going for years? So he had to do something kind of insane. So instead of just listing a bunch of basic information on his sales page, he did something that literally no one at the time was willing to do. He let customers leave reviews. So Amazon would allow real people to leave reviews on the products they bought, the good things, the bad things, and if the product was even worth buying. But this wasn't just risky, it was downright crazy because negative reviews could kill sales, and if people were publicly criticizing his products, then that would drive customers away, or so everyone thought. But the reality was exactly the opposite of that. See, because customers actually felt safer purchasing products from Amazon when they were able to see the experiences of other real people who had bought the product. And it was that level of transparency that skyrocketed to Amazon, not only to one of the most visited websites in the world, but one of the most valuable companies in the world. And it's all because they did one thing that no one else was willing to do: show proof of results. But unfortunately, the majority of creators shy away from talking about results, either because they don't know how to track the results their content actually gets, or because they don't want to guarantee something that they're not confident they can actually deliver, which I totally get. And as a result, they keep their entire offer centered around the quality of the content, so they don't have the pressure of having to deliver results, and they can just focus on creating content. But the problem is that strategy usually backfires. So you know when you're trying to buy a new lens and there's a lot of contenders that you're trying to decide between, and usually you'll go to something like B&H and look at the spec sheet, but you're probably not going to buy it right away. You'd probably watch some YouTube reviews so you can see the sharpness, the image quality, and the color replication all for yourself. But if you didn't see any reviews, you'd probably start to doubt, like, why is no one talking about this? Or is it any good? Or even worse, what are they hiding? And all that doubt starts to creep in, and what do? You go buy a different lens. And that same doubt starts to creep into the minds of your prospects if they don't see proof of results in any of your marketing messages. So instead of being a valuable asset to their company, you're just treated like another freelancer. So they'll either ghost you, they won't respond, they won't reach out, or best case scenario, they're gonna price shop you against a bunch of other freelancers. Now, I get a lot of you might be watching this video and you're like, nah, people just pay me to take photos, I don't really care about results. And while that might be the case, it's also the exact reason that you're still stuck charging bottom of the barrel rate. Because honestly, the game has changed. I mean, back in the day, you could just have a decent portfolio and a good rate, and clients would hire you just based off of that because there was far fewer talented creatives and also far fewer that were willing to work for super cheap. I mean, you weren't competing with guys like Jimmy, who's still in college and doesn't really have any expenses, or Madison, who's in Bali living off $300, or even Jake, who's maybe just taking a gap year and taking some free stays just to offset his cost. And by the way, if you're any of those people, like, enjoy it while it lasts, but you're gonna want to find something sustainable ASAP because you can't live off of cheap gigs your entire life. I mean, the fact is there's so many people who do what you do just as well, if not better than how you do it, and they're willing to do it for cheaper than what you would do it for. So the fact is you can't compete on visuals anymore. And let's be honest, if a client is asking you why they should hire you instead of someone with a similar portfolio that's charging less, I mean, what are you gonna say? Is it because you got more experience? Is it because you worked with XYZ companies that have more prestige? I mean, no, clients don't really care. They really only care about two things. Number one, can you do the job the way they want it to be done? And two, are they gonna get an ROI off of this work? So hopefully if your portfolio is good, that answers the first question. But unless you can make a logical argument that answers the second question, then you're gonna be stuck in cheapo land for a very long time. So the question is, how can we not only prove that you're worth paying for, but that you're worth paying a premium for above and beyond everyone else? And that question can be answered with one simple thing, which is a case study. So think of case studies kind of like the Amazon review reviews for your service. So their entire goal is just to maximize trust and ultimately just convince clients that you are worth paying for. You know, the kind of trust that makes them clear their schedule to get on a call with you, pay your invoice without any kind of hesitation. That's what we're going for. Now, where most people go wrong here is they assume that a case study is the same thing as getting a good review from a client, but the problem is most good reviews look like this. So by pretty much every standard, this is considered a great review. I mean, the client obviously loved the content, they're showing intent to become a recurring customer, and just overall, it was a great experience. And although this is better than what 90% of creators have, nothing about it says shut up and take my money. And the reason for that is because it ignores the 3 core principles that make anybody want to buy. The first one is credibility. What about your service is credible or makes it trustworthy? The second is one of one. So what about the way you do business makes you unique or different than everybody else? And then the third is transformation. So what was the clear transformation or result that happened that makes hiring you better than any other freelancer or creator on the market? So to illustrate this point, let's go back to our Amazon example. So let's say we're trying to buy a stand-up desk and we see a review like this. So this review definitely builds trust that this is a decent desk. You probably wouldn't go wrong buying it, but does it make you excited to buy it? Probably not. But imagine if we swapped it out for this review. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd be way more likely to buy this desk because it focuses on the 3 core elements that we just discussed. So let's break it down. So the first thing is, does this review show credibility for the company or the product? The answer is obviously yes. It talks about how it's stable, it won't wobble, they built it in 10 minutes, so it lives up to the claim. The second thing is, does this review position the desk as a one of one? Well, again, I would say yes, because they literally said it's the best $200 they've ever spent. And lastly, does it show a transformation? I would say yes, because it took the customer from a skeptic based on previous negative experiences to a raving fan to the point where they actually wrote a review. Okay, so that's great and all for products on Amazon, but how do you make a case study for yourself? So the first step is picking a project where you actually got some results. So sometimes that means reaching out to previous clients to figure out what the result actually was. And sometimes if you don't have that yet, it means going out and doing some work for free so you can actually get proof of results. And to illustrate this, I'm going to put an example of one of my case studies right here. So the first thing you need is a headline that basically simplifies your entire results into a one-liner statement. So I like to use the framework, I helped X client achieve Y result with Z strategy. So as an example, it could be I helped a boutique resort double their ROAS with our content funnel. Now the second thing you need is to set up the pain or the before state. So this is typically going to be about 2 to 3 sentences, and you're going to want to answer 3 questions. 1, what was the problem the client was facing prior to hiring you? 2, what was the negative impact on their business as a result of that problem? And 3, what ultimately made them decide to start working with you? So now that we've established the problem, now we need to highlight the process that we used to get the client the result. So this is again going to be about 2 to 3 sentences, and it's going to highlight the unique way that you got results for the client other than just like, hey, we took some pictures. So now that we've highlighted the process, we want to talk about the transformation, what actually happened as a result. So again, this is going to be about 2 to 3 sentences max, and we want to answer 2 questions. 1, what was the main result that the client got? Ideally, if you can use numbers, that would be great. And 2, what was the immediate positive impact that the client saw on their business? Which brings us to the 5th and final thing you need, which is proof that this actually happened. So typically that's going to be like a client testimonial, like a quote. It will be campaign assets, so the actual content that was created. So think about this like a portfolio piece. And then lastly, if you have it, any kind of screenshots you can get of a before and after. It could be metrics, it could be a dashboard, or any kind of proof that you can show that you got clients results. Okay, so now that you know that you definitely need to have a case study in order to land high ticket clients, the next question becomes, well, what the heck do you even offer to make sure you get results? So you're going to want to watch this video next, where I break down the anatomy of a $5,000 content offer.